Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. We are out just kind of running around a little bit. Just got done with a pretty heavy storm, and I thought I'd take the Shadow out for a change. It's been quite a while. I've been on the CB500X most of the time for, I don't know, the past couple months, and the Shadow's not been getting any love, so I figured I'd just take it out for a quick ride and bring you guys along. And yeah, I hope everybody's doing all right. I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain anyway. So on the ADV forum, there was a lot of chatter, a lot of people talking. I was one of them, about the new KLR 650, if you want to call it new. I'm disappointed in it because I was hoping for a much better bike than what they rolled out. I understand that a lot of people are happy with it, and that's cool. I just wasn't one of them. I was hoping for a competitor for the T7, and that's not what we got. What we got was basically the old KLR 650 with fuel injection and optional ABS and 30 pounds heavier. They also added like 300 millimeters to the rear swing arm, which is probably going to have a pretty dramatic effect on the handling. And they increased the front disc diameter and the rear disc thickness, which they say that's to stop overheating, which if you've got that problem, then I would suggest you've got other issues as well if your rear brake's overheating. KLR's pretty notoriously weak braked, or has pretty weak braking. Anyway, I got sidetracked. The reason why I brought it up is they were talking about the gearing, right? The old KLR is a 5-speed, the new one's a 5-speed, and everybody was like, well, or a lot of people were saying that they were hoping for a 6-speed, me included. And then some other guys got on there and said, well, with that kind of, you know, with that anemic of an engine, it couldn't use a 6th gear. Well, I think, and I might not be totally right about this all the time, but that goes to show what I'm talking about. I might not be right about this all the time, but for the most part, your top gear, whether it's 5th, 6th, or in the case of this beast, 4th, is about 1-to-1 with the drive sprocket. It's the way they're most going to be designed. Now, some of the more powerful bikes have overdrive in them. Some of the least powerful bikes have, you know, some gear reduction, but a lot of them don't. The reason for a 5th or a 6th gear isn't necessarily to make it cruise at a lower RPM, but it helps with that close ratio, especially with an adventure bike that you're going to be in the dirt and on the highways with, because it gives you more areas to have the gear set to have comfortable cruising or riding, right? So if I know the KLR has a tall first gear, which makes it a little bit more difficult when you're talking about a 480-pound bike. That's before my fat ass and I think a full tank of fuel. If you're riding around in first gear, wants to go 30 miles an hour, it's a huge pain in the ass. You're slipping the clutch to try to get everywhere, and you run the risk actually of burning a clutch up, even though, you know, I know people say you can't do that with wet clutches, which I think the KLR is, but yes, you can. So with a 6-speed, you can lower that first gear and then tighten up some of the other gear ratios from the next to the next to the next. It means you end up having to shift a few more, or shift more, but that is not that big of a loss when you're talking about something that's supposed to be able to putt around in the woods or go 20, 25, 30 on fire roads, run 35 down city streets, and run 55 on highways and 70 on interstates. You're asking a lot of a gearbox to be able to find comfortable areas in all those different spots, and to try to do that with a 5-speed isn't going to happen. And this thing is the best, or one of the better examples of it. Yeah, it's a cruiser, so it's really only meant for doing a couple different things, but it's a 4-speed, and it's only a 600, so it doesn't have a lot of motor. In fact, I don't even think this thing comes in at the 1 horsepower per 10 pounds that I prefer, especially now that it's, you know, 15 years old and hasn't had necessarily the best of life. But anyway, it puts you in a situation where first gear is either way too long. All right, so let's say, okay, I'm in first, still in first, 25. So 0 to 25 in first, 25 to 40 in second. Now 40 will run up to 55 in third, and then I could just kind of throw her into fourth for final gear. Now that's after a massive change in the gearing on this bike. When I first got it, the first gear was very short, and the typical, what I consider to be Honda short. It's meant to get you right out of the box, and if you want to start off in second, you feel free, it'll be fine. So I changed the gearing on it so that it will have a little bit more gear in the top end, which was necessary because this thing was kind of screaming around to find a good place at 40 miles an hour, which just pissed me off and got old quick. Now I've got a good spot at 35 and 55, 40. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that because to me, I think that's something that's a little misunderstood. Now, there are times, like I said, when bikes are going to have, you know, an overdrive, or in the case of like dirt bikes, their gearing is much different. But for street bikes and ADV bikes, a 5-speed is just, it's just not going to get the job done anymore. I don't think it ever really got the job done. We just got used to it. And I think that's kind of the way of the KLR. Is it right? No, but you'll get used to it. And I don't understand why you want to start from that position. If you end up there, you end up there, right? But why you would start from the position of having a bike that is doing everything kind of half-ass. And some of the guys were saying, well, you know, that price tag, $7,000. All right. I think your money's better spent on a used AT at 85, or finding a used CB500X that's already been tricked out. Or I just think your money's better spent in so many different ways if you're wanting to start adventure riding. If you want a bike for around the farm, I kind of think the KLR is a good option, but I think that's kind of a dying thing because the side-by-sides have taken that over mostly. So, needless to say, I'm a little disappointed in the KLR release. I just think it was very underwhelming. If they would have said, like last year, hey, we're gonna, you know, or before they discontinued it, if they were gonna say, hey, we're gonna go ahead and give this another refresh and we'll have it back out to you, you know, within a year, I think everybody would temper their expectations or their hopes. I know I would have. But instead, they pulled it off the market. They kept it hush-hush. They were like, oh, no, yeah, it's discontinued. We're not bringing it back. Everybody knowing, of course, that they were. Even though the new KLR has its faults, here's the other side to that coin. The KLR reminds me a lot of a Ford Mustang. Yeah, you can always buy a car that's faster. You can always buy a car that handles better. You can buy a car that's more comfortable. But if you want a Mustang, then that's what you need to get. And it's the same thing with the KLR. The funny thing about the new KLR is, even though I have my beef with it, if a new person, somebody new to adventure riding or wanted to get involved in adventure riding, was asking me what bike they should go for, I would be very tempted to say a KLR. It's just so user-friendly. It works all the time. It's bulletproof. It'll do the job. See, here's the thing that, like, my beef with it tends to come into is that the XR has better suspension, the DR has a better motor, and both of those bikes are better options for riding in the dirt. However, the KLR is better on the road than those two other bikes, primarily due to having better wind protection and the gearing being a little bit better suited, and it having a softer suspension is going to give you a little bit more of a smooth ride. So if you're wanting to do adventure riding, it's not all dirt roads. If you're going to go dirt roads, then you're going to go get an XR and put a big tank on it, or get a DR, and that's what you're going to do. But if you're wanting to do adventure riding, which is blacktop, dirt, mud, the KLR is a better option than those two other bikes. If you look at the 300 options in the KLX and the CRF, you know what? Even the CRF Rally, the KLR is going to be a better option on the road. The CRF Rally might be a little bit closer because it has the fairing and all that such stuff, but I somehow doubt it. So, while I'm disappointed in the new KLR, that isn't to say that I think it's a bad bike. It's just not the bike that I was hoping for. The other thing is, I really hope, and this is my hoping beyond hope, they have not released horsepower numbers on the new KLR. Now, they did release torque numbers. I don't remember what they were, but it seemed pretty good. But what I hope, and hope beyond hope, is that they managed to somehow or another squeeze 40 to 45 horsepower out of that poor old motor without pulling it too tight. With EFI, a good pipe option, I don't know, maybe, right? And I really hope that's what happened, because if she has around 40 to 45 horsepower, this bike will become a direct replacement for the Tenere 660Z, which we never had here in the US, which is widely regarded as a pretty great adventure bike. Now, is that 10 years later than everybody else? Yeah, it is. But it's still a market, and I think it'll work out pretty well if that's the case. If it's still got like 32 horsepower and spaghetti suspension, then I'm right to be ticked off. But if it's got good, if the suspension has been beefed up to the point to where they say it has been, I know they've made a couple modifications to the brakes. They've got the brakes fixed, and if they've got the power up on it, then the new KLR could turn out to not be that overweight dirt bike, but become a true entry to the adventure motorcycling. And that's really where I sit with the new KLR. I'm disappointed, but it's still probably a pretty damn good bike. And if they made the improvements that they said they made, it could be a really great bike. So on that note, guys, I am going to probably ride around here a little bit, enjoy the shadow while I still have it, and until next time, y'all stay safe, have fun. I'll see you when I see you. Laters.